Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wing Cat Sports by myself, Tigers Breakdown. There's a lot of stuff has been going on these past couple of weeks. I haven't had time to talk about the Tigers, so we get to catch up on a lot of stuff by myself because I am contagious. Got sick. But regardless, we're going to talk about the last couple of weeks. We missed the trade deadline, talking about that. So we're going to talk about that. It's actually probably up and foremost what I will end up talking about. But we're going to cover the fact that the Tigers currently are sitting in a playoff spot in the making of this video. 2.5 games back of Chicago. Chicago lost their series against the Reds. We'll see if we're sitting in a playoff spot by the end of the night. We might not be. It's all up to if the Rangers lose to the Angels again or not. But you're sitting pretty good to be at least a half game out. So we'll see what ends up fully happening. Again, anything can happen. The Tigers are in a really, really good position. Again, the past couple of weeks have been iffy. They weren't looking the hottest last time I talked about them. They kind of blew their series against the Royals and then blew their series against Baltimore. Ended up sweeping the Athletics, winning the Seattle series, winning the San Francisco series, and now winning the Cleveland series. That has resulted in us being in a very good position this next week with Chicago and Pittsburgh. Because if you can even win that Chicago series, it puts you in a very favorable series against Pittsburgh. And then even looking the next series after that, Kansas City, still very favorable for you, even though you play them close. Kansas City's still not the greatest team. And again, you keep the momentum going. You should be sitting in a pretty decent spot before having a very rough 6 games against two of the best teams currently in baseball, that being the Rays and LA. Both, are sitting on top of the league, but both are at home. So, there's that advantage. And that rounds out your month of August before we have a very, honestly, in my opinion, favorable month of September besides your division games, Colorado, Toronto, Washington, and again, Pittsburgh that last week of the season being at home. So again, we'll see what ends up fully happening with that. But regardless, talking about that, we'll skip to the trade deadline, go back to the trade deadline because we didn't talk about that. And we'll give my dad a chance eventually to talk about the trade deadline. Skubal and Mice being gone, yes, it sucks. That you need to do it. At least the Skubal one, I'm iffy on the Mize one. But I mean, if you're playing well, you're playing well. Our rotation does not look bad without them. They've been pitching very well so far. You got a return for both. That is, Skubal one's a little bit more upsetting. Mize one, you got what you good. You got a couple good, potentially good pitchers. You got a good outfielder in the Skubal trade and another good, potentially good pitcher in the Skubal trade. And again, you can always sign. You're going to probably have a chance to sign Mize back. I don't know about Skubal. Probably not. I would expect him to be gone. He says this stuff to the media and make you think, oh, it's not that bad, but he's never coming back. His time as a Tiger has fully ended. Maybe you see him in the World Series. Ha ha ha. No, we're not making it that far. But he will pitch. I think if I did my math correctly, he should be pitching one of the games in the LA series at home. I think he might be doing the Friday night if I really did do my math correctly. If not, he's at least pitching Sunday if I didn't do my math correctly. But it'll be interesting to see at least him pitching back at home after the trade deadline. Again, it's going to be a rough 6 games anyways. Again, luckily at home, you played well against Tampa earlier this year, so, maybe you'll play well against them again. And then that Dodgers series in itself is going to be a test of your, offense who's been unstoppable for the most part. But again, we'll see what ends up fully happening. Injury news: Riley Green got hurt this week, so we'll see when he decides to come back. Oh, Outman just got hurt too. Fantastic. He wasn't bad in the race anyways, but he got hurt. He just got put on the concussion list for 7 days. Green is on a 10-day injured list with a hamstring. Perez was pulled off his rehab assignment. Vest finally had his hip surgery. And then Gary Carpenter has recently begun his rehabs. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's making his progression. So see what ends up happening when we fully get our whole roster together. It is sad, you're sitting in this final wild card spot, 1 game under 500. But the fact that, again, my dad talked about back in May, if you would have said you're 1 game under 500 in general, we would have been surprised. They had a terrible month of May. We thought the season was over then. They are sitting in a completely different spot now. We'll see what ends up happening. Now, again, if you're playing a game of kind of musical chairs, you're tied with Minnesota right now. If Minnesota wins their game tonight, they play late. They're not playing right now. They play later tonight. They have a 7 o'clock. They're not playing a late game. They play a 7 o'clock game against the Phillies, though, so you might have a good chance sitting there with the White Sox and that's what the Twins falling back a half a game since the games are already done, and you're sitting a game up on them. And then Texas and the LA Angels, they play the Angels. They're playing at 10 tonight, so again, we're not really going to know until about 1 o'clock tonight whether or not we are sitting in a playoff spot at the moment or not. And again, now you're playing the game with Texas on top of everyone else in the wild card standing. And again, a weird thing to realize is if you can somehow sweep the White Sox, you're going to be sitting first place in the division. I don't know if we're going to sweep them, but if you win the series, that puts you a game and a half back going into a week where you play Kansas City and Pittsburgh. Again, very favorable. You might be able to make up even more ground and have a little bit of a lead in the division by the end of next week. And then you'll play your tough week and you'll probably fall back into second or third. Because we are in a close division. 4 games separate first and fourth place. Not improbable. You had the best run differential in the American League at a plus 90. The Yankees are second with the plus 89. And I would say it's American, but the whole league, but the whole National League, every playoff team has a plus 100 or more of run differential, besides the Padres and the Diamondbacks. But the Cubs, the Brewers both have over 115. The Dodgers are plus 142. And the Braves are plus 124. So the National League is just creaming the ball, while the American League is not so much. But you're up there. You're getting up there. But we'll see what ends up happening this week. It could be a very interesting week. By the end of fully next week after the Pirates series, we could be sitting in a pretty interesting spot. We're on the watch for the Rangers. And honestly, a lot more teams than the Rangers. Right now, you're tied with the Rangers. You're a half game up on the Twins. Game and a half up on the Blue Jays, a game and a half up on the Guardians, 2 games up on the Orioles, 3.5 up on the Mariners. And that's kind of where you fall off with that list. So you got about 6 to 7 teams fighting for this one wild card spot. On top of, depending on what happens with the Red Sox, since they have kind of cooled off a little bit, which they're winning 5-0 right now. So they'll gain that half game back up, be about 5 games up on us. Toronto will fall back to 2 games. And again, you got 5 games to catch up to Boston and technically have the second wild card spot, which is, again, interesting in itself for you to end up doing. And you're still only sitting 8 games back of the Yankees. But not only is a very strong word they use there, but 8 games back of the Yankees for that top wild card. Whether or not we even get close to that, we'll see what time will tell. You're hot right now, and anything honestly can happen, so we'll see what ends up happening. But I'll end it here. If you like to see, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about the Tigers and how they've been playing and what you think they need to do to keep this ball rolling. And until next time, see everybody soon.